Thank you for joining us for our Part 4 series of our Neighborhood Partners program. Today, we're going to talk about attainability versus affordability. These videos are meant to be educational and informational, and they do not contain recommendations for the Silver Spring Downtown and Adjacent Communities Plan. Today, we're going to talk about defining the terms attainability versus affordability. We're going to talk broadly at the national level about missing middle housing and the market. We'll look at the Silver Spring Downtown and Adjacent Communities Plan Missing Middle Market Study that was prepared earlier this year. And we'll talk about affordable housing and how affordable housing works and is implemented in Montgomery County.
Let's start with some basic definitions. The first term we'll define is attainability. Attainability is a relatively new term to both the housing policy world and the Montgomery Planning Department. We have typically in the past focused on affordability, which we'll discuss next, but it's generally a measure of whether or not a household can afford to live in a housing unit and how much of their income goes to housing. We recently introduced this concept of attainability in the housing chapter of Thrive Montgomery 2050, Affordable and Attainable Housing, where attainability is being used in recognition that our housing needs go beyond a sole focus on affordability, but also include type, location, size, and tenure. Attainability is the ability of households of various incomes and sizes to obtain housing that is suitable for their needs and affordable to them. Attainable housing is not income-restricted housing. With attainability, there is implicit recognition that we need to build more housing of more types to meet the growing diverse housing needs in this county. The next term we'll define is affordability. Housing programs and policy have long measured housing affordability in terms of percentage of income spent on housing. Generally, 30% of income is the threshold and is the indicator of affordability for housing in the United States. Households that spend more than 30% of their income on housing costs are considered cost burden, meaning that too much of their income goes to housing costs. Keeping housing costs below 30% of income is intended to ensure that households have enough money to pay for other costs like childcare and transportation. Next term we'll define is area median income. Each year, HUD, Housing and Urban Development, calculates the area median income for every geographic region in the country by using data from the U.S. Census-based American Community Survey. The area median income is the midpoint of a region's income distribution, meaning that half of households in a region earn more than the median and half earn less than the median. When we talk about affordable housing programs and who that program serves, we often use AMI as the qualifier and use it to describe the income ranges that that program serves. When people use the term median family income, they are usually referring to the income for a family of four at 100% AMI. In the Washington area, the median family income for a family of four is $126,000.
So looking at the national perspective and through our Neighborhood Partners program and our series of videos, kind of touching back at a broader level of missing middle housing and the market. Why the demand? With a housing shortage across the US and 90% of housing being in single family neighborhoods, there is a demand for more housing choices at different price points for people of varying demographics with varying incomes. Millennials, baby boomers, and multi-generational households with diverse family cultures require more attainable housing choices or options, with a greater variety of household sizes in walkable communities close to amenities. So what does the market want? When we look at walkable and accessible amenities, this is one of the key things that people are really saying they are looking for when moving to a new neighborhood. According to the National Association of Realtors, walkability is fast becoming one of the most important factors in choosing where people live. People of all ages want easy access to amenities such as stores and businesses, entertainment, cultural centers, as well as transit. And home buyers are seeking locations within walking distance to these types of amenities. The market also wants variety of transportation. Accessibility to useful multimodal transit public transportation, bike-friendly streets, and car share is really needed by baby boomers and is also desired by millennials. Affordability. Housing affordability, as we're talking about today, is a primary concern for many Americans across the country, ranging from blue-collar workers to early career singles, young families, as well as seniors. When we've talked through our visioning sessions about missing middle housing in particular, one of the things that we've asked people to visualize is the different points in your life and the different types of housing you've had in your life. From the time you came out of college to middle-aged and having kids, and then as seniors who maybe own a home but want to downsize. And so those are things that we want to think about in terms of providing additional housing options when we talk about affordability and attainability. And the market also wants a sense of community. More and more Americans say living in a diverse community that includes people of all stages of life is a really important factor in determining where they live. And we've certainly heard that on the Downtown Silver Spring plan. Through all of our community visioning sessions, one of the key things that everybody has really talked about why they love Silver Spring is the diversity.
As part of the Silver Spring Downtown and Adjacent Communities Plan, planning staff completed a market study that looks at the market for missing middle housing in the Silver Spring area. I'll share a few key findings, but recommend you watch the whole presentation for the planning board, which the link can be found on the Silver Spring Downtown and Adjacent Communities website. Some key findings from the study include, in order to make missing middle type of housing development feasible, redevelopment of existing single-family homes requires an increase in density or value. There is no scenario involving house scale missing middle housing that generated sufficient revenue to make widespread neighborhood transformation likely. This does not mean that no house scale missing middle will occur with potential changes. It just means that based on the current trends, we expect transformation of neighborhoods to be more incremental. While we expect no widespread transformation, there are scenarios involving high-value house-scale duplexes within the Beltway that might be financially feasible and could compete with the tear-down rebuild market for some lower-value properties. And one of the central decisions that we'll have to wrestle with through this plan is that if no action is taken over time, the existing housing stock will be slowly transformed by right under the current zoning code and into large custom homes that are less affordable. This will likely reduce the diversity of the Silver Spring community that they value and the increase the socioeconomic gap between the adjacent communities in downtown. And finally, enabling the private sector to create comparatively less expensive new housing options that are accessible to a more diverse segment of the population will require changes to the zoning code and potentially the subdivision and entitlement process. Next, let's talk about some of the affordable housing programs that exist in Montgomery County and who they serve. I'll start with the category of households that are the hardest to serve, which are households under 50% AMI, which is around $60,000 a year for a family of four. Generally, we only meet their housing needs with financial subsidies. The primary vehicle for rental assistance in Montgomery County is the Housing Choice Voucher Program, which is administered by HOC. HOC is the Housing Opportunities Commission, and they serve as Montgomery County's housing authority. HOC currently administers vouchers, which provide a rent subsidy to clients so that they can afford safe and quality affordable housing in Montgomery County. The subsidy amount is based on a payment standard set by HOC, and the client pays no more than 40% of their income on housing. There are two main types of vouchers. We have the project-based and tenant-based vouchers. Project-based vouchers are assigned to a specific building, and clients must reside in the building to receive assistance. Families with tenant-based vouchers can use their assistance at any home, apartment, or other private market residence that meet household requirements, safety standards, and rent reasonableness. In general, the family's income may not exceed 50% AMI. Also, about 30% of moderately priced dwelling units serve households at or under 50% AMI. And if you don't know what an MPDU is, we'll go over that extensively in the next couple of slides. But in this context, HOC and other government agencies like HHS are allowed to buy or lease 1/3 of the MPDUs in a building. And they can also use HIF funding, which is our housing trust fund, or other sources of funding to subsidize the rent further. Lastly, federal agencies provide essential funds to county programs for the construction, acquisition, and renovation of housing for special needs populations. Next slide. Next, let's talk about programs that serve moderate income households. We're going to spend a lot of time on the MPDU program today, but a quick overview is that the MPDU program is Montgomery County's landmark inclusionary zoning program. It's been in effect for over 40 years, and the MPDU law requires developments of over 20 units or more to set aside between 12.5% and 15% of rental and for sale units for moderate income households. Another tool that we have to serve moderate and workforce housing households is rental agreements. They are often used by the county in conjunction with landlords and multifamily owners to assist in the preservation of affordable housing units in the county. In many cases, such agreements are entered in voluntarily between existing tenants and property owners to address the specifics of future rent increases. Recently, they've been used as a tool of preservation in master plans like Littonsville, Forest Glen, Montgomery Hills, and the Veers Mill Corridor Plan to address the loss of naturally occurring affordable housing in the event of redevelopment. Often, property owners are given more density and redevelopment is allowed in exchange. And in exchange, after redevelopment, the property owner must cap rents at a certain percentage of units and no higher than 80% AMI. We also have the HIF, which is the county's housing trust fund. Projects financed with the HIF can help create and preserve affordable housing, especially in regard to preserving MPDUs near expiration. And finally, the low-income housing tax credit, or LIHTC, can help cover the development costs of building affordable housing and are awarded on a competitive basis to nonprofit and for-profit sponsors of eligible housing projects. Awards are based on criteria outlined in the state's Qualified Allocation Plan, or the QAP, and recent changes to the LIHTC allow for income averaging. So as long as the average gross rent for the restricted units in the projects does not exceed 60% AMI. So let's talk about the MPDU program. Like I said, the MPDU program is the hallmark of Montgomery County's housing policy. And as far as master plans and affordable housing goes, it's one of the primary affordable housing tools that we can use in a master plan. At the planning department, we don't have a lot of say over who gets tax credits or who gets financing from the HIF, but we can use the MPD requirements in a master plan. The MPD law was enacted in 1973 with the aim of furthering the objective of providing a full range of housing choices for all incomes, ages, and household sizes. The law imposes requirements on construction of affordable housing to meet existing and anticipated needs for moderate income housing. And the control period, or when these units expire, is 99 years for rental and 30 years for sale. But the 30-year clock restarts if that unit is sold within the 30-year window, basically meaning most of these units are held in perpetuity. The MPD program is a local inclusionary zoning program. The number and location of MPDUs are established during the land use and zoning approval of a new construction development and the preliminary plan of subdivision. It requires 12.5% to 15% of all new units and developments over 20 units to be affordable to moderate income households, which is generally 65 to 70% AMI, which is around $80,000 to $90,000 in income for a family of four. The program provides incentives through optional increases in density to offset the cost of construction to encourage the construction of moderately priced dwelling units. What this means is that while we have a 12.5% minimum requirement for any development over 20 units, and any additional MPDUs above that are offered an optional bonus density. For example, in Silver Spring, there's a 12.5% MPDU requirement. If any development were to provide 15% MPDUs, they would receive a 22% bonus density. Next slide. The MPD program has been very successful. We've produced more inclusionary units than any other jurisdiction, which is a testament to Montgomery County's commitment to affordable housing and the relatively long lifespan of the program. The county has produced over 16,000 total MPDUs, and currently there are over 5,000 MPDUs under the control period. Given the high costs of the high housing costs in Montgomery County, the county also has a workforce housing program, which services households between 70 and 100% area median income, which is about $90,000 to $150,000 a year for a family of 4. The workforce housing program is an optional, voluntary, affordable housing program for developers. The county often requires workforce housing units as a condition of development related to the use of county-owned land for building housing. The workforce housing program also helps increase the availability of housing in the county for public employees and other workers whose income cannot support the high cost of housing that is located near our commercial districts. We also have down payment and homeownership programs through both the county and the Housing Opportunities Commission that can make homeownership a reality in high-cost areas like Montgomery County.
So some food for thought for this presentation. We hope it was educational and informational. What affordable housing tools do you think planners should pursue for this plan, and why or why not? And what housing gaps do you think exist in downtown Silver Spring? We'd love to hear your thoughts and ideas, and if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us, to Lisa Gavoni at montgomeryplanning.org or our project manager, Atara Margulies at montgomeryplanning.org. And please feel free to sign up for our Silver Spring Downtown and Adjacent Communities e-letter and share any feedback through our online interactive map here at this web link. We again thank you for your time, and we look forward to continue conversations with the community as we develop this plan. Thank you.